Welcome to the Fischer-Z 50th anniversary audio series, where I've picked my favourite tracks over the years, and I'm going to share the story of those tracks and a lot more.
Thanks, John, and welcome to this very special episode of the Fischer-Z podcast series. As a reminder, my name is Martin Bull, and I've been helping John by curating his way through his favourite tracks. Now, today's episode is part one of a two-part episode, where I've spoken to many of the Fischer-Z musicians and contributors to Fischer-Z over the last 50 years. I hope you enjoy it, so let's get into it. We start with David Purdy, who recalls how he joined the band. So you've sort of played with John for a long time, I would say. You've been a bit of a constant right back from these first sort of solo album, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was directly after Red Skies. Well, I think Red Skies was still probably in the charts in Germany. And as I think John's probably explained to you, he decided to split or leave the band. I think immediately started looking around for other musicians, and I was at the time I was playing in a band in London. I was living in London. I was playing in a band called the Stickers, which the singer was a man called Andrew Rankin, who went on to be the drummer of the Pogues. The drummer was Kenny Harris, who went on to play with the Screaming Blue Messiahs. One of the guitarists was called James Attlee, who was the descendant of Clement Attlee. It was
okay.
If it was together now, it would be an interesting band, and he's an author in his own right, as I believe. And so I was playing with them, and we were doing the London circuit, Marquee, Dingwalls, I mean everything really, the Rock Garden. I guess I was kind of looking to do something professional, and I'd been to some auditions. I think 9 Below Zero was one of them, I think, or no, The Truth.
Yeah,
I was into at that time. I mean, obviously, Dr. Feelgood. The Truth, 9 Below Zero. I can't remember the timeline of 9 Below Zero and The Truth, but around that time we were playing the same circuit with the Stickers.
You were, yeah.
I remember that the manager of the Rock Garden gave myself and Kenny this plastic ticket, which meant we could just go to the Rock Garden whenever we want, and of course we were there every night. I auditioned for John in 1981 summer, I think, and started playing for him practically immediately. And he was still, the success of Red Skies. They were in the charts still, I think, in Germany, Holland, and Belgium. And then we started rehearsing, and then that autumn we went into the Manor, Richard Branson's Virgin Records old studio, and recorded One More Twist.
Did you know him? Did you just audition
It was an audition. I'm not even sure if I was first choice, but there were other bass players there, and we played through a few songs, and then he phoned me back about a week later and said, if you're interested, you've got the gig. And we started rehearsing. For the album. I think there may have been a radio show that we did in Germany at one point. So we went into the Manor. As I say, it was a month's recording. I can't remember how much of it was actual recording and mixing. And John finished it off in the beginning of January. Yeah, something really special about the album. We've spoken a bit about it, and he said in retrospect that should have been a Fischer-Z album. If it had been, it would have been the one. I mean, I can remember on that first tour doing TV shows, radio shows, and leaving with sort of gold discs under my arm, trying to help him carry all his gold discs from the year before, and getting through customs, and people saying, "Oh, is this your band?" And I'd be having to explain, well, not technically, but yeah. So that was, he was really the tour that we did for One More Twist. He was still really getting all of the acknowledgement from Red Skies. People that wanted to know about Fischer-Z, and those tracks were still getting played at clubs. If we ended up in a restaurant or club, they'd still be playing Fischer-Z stuff. That was a pivotal moment for him, I guess.
Why do you think he's sort of managed to last that long? Why do you think that the band has sort of endured over the 50 years?
I think his songwriting, definitely. I think in a funny way, actually, that decision to split Fischer-Z up, and as it is with a lot of artists, I mean, Bowie comes to mind, that are always changing. I remember when Bob Dylan went electric, his fans hated it. But those moments when artists have kind of broken their fans' expectations by doing something shocking are often the ones that have survived longest. I think a little bit of that he wasn't scared to say, okay, I'm gonna change this, and he's done that on a regular basis over the years with name changes from his own name. J.M. Watts, The Cry was after these two albums, and then back to Fischer-Z, and then so he's I think he's always kept people guessing, and I think that's a big part of it. Maybe he would have got a lot bigger in the 80s, but then maybe he wouldn't have sustained that success. But I think the songs stand the test of time, really. Yeah.
I think that's right, because you obviously then played on Iceberg Model as well, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Because that's got some great songs on it too.
Yeah, definitely. The opening, the violin, and that's really nice. Yeah, and we still play "Man in Someone Else's Skin."
Distance, something wrong. His confidence is just not working. Why is it so quiet now? He's with a made-up parade of dolls. Obvious is that's what fighting. The candle keeps on burning down. I'm a man in someone else's skin. I'm a man in someone else's skin. I'm a man in someone else's skin. Whoa, 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 whoa. Cautious maneuvers, too much restraint. The sensor won't be hard to handle. I am inescapable. Planned by the mirror, survey the view. Identify strange reception and watch the image multiply. I'm a man in someone else's skin.
And I Smelt Roses.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
John's fans love it. It's and that was a great album as well. That was recorded at Ridge Farm.
Yep.
All around the time that Yes were there, and of course the Dexys brass section. Big Jimmy Patterson and Paul Spear and Brian Brummett, who sadly is no longer with us, and neither is Dick, the drummer on that, Dick Adland. He went a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. He died. sadly. And he was a friend of mine from school, and he played with the Piranhas.
Okay, so post Iceberg Model there, and that was 84. As I say, John's worked with lots and lots of musicians, but you are
Yeah.
one of the guys that seem to be one of those returning musicians.
Well, I've returned recently, but I haven't.
Yes, yeah.
But I left. I mean, that was a strange string of events. I got enticed away from John by a band that had a development deal with Elton John's record label, and that kind of didn't. Of course, we know now John just carried on knocking out records and hits in Europe, and so that was why I kind of left at that point. But I actually did a lot of the demos for The Cry, and I still have tapes of Quick Slow. I played on the original demo. We did that, I think, at the Townhouse or something like that in London. Funny for me because I was playing Dave Graham's bass lines, and then he obviously, I don't know, I'm not sure how much he was playing my bass lines, but I'd done the demos that he ended up playing on that Cry album. That was interesting. But yes, I left to do something different with former members of the Lambrettas.
Oh,
if
yes.
you remember them. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, I
and
do.
Steve.
Yeah. Poison Ivy.
They were old mates of mine from school as well.
So how did you get back into the band then post 84?
I've only been with John again the last 7 years. Obviously, we've stayed in touch. I was living in Brighton until the mid-80s. So, we'd see each other mid-90s, sorry. And I've always stayed in touch with John. We've met up for a drink and, there's always been a friendly relationship there. This last time, Fischer-Z played in Madrid. I'm living in Madrid. And I saw that they were playing. So I thought, I'll go and see them. And that was in 2018, in January 2018. And then after that, he kept calling me and saying, "What are you up to?" And I can't remember what happened. He kind of disbanded the band he had at that point, and there was a little bit of usual John chaos going on. And they gave me a call on a Thursday and asked me what I was doing on the Saturday and would I like to go and do a gig. So on the Friday afternoon, I was on a plane, got to Brighton, did an hour or two with John in his flat. And then I think we had a rehearsal at Brighton Electric Rehearsal Studios Saturday morning, and then off we went and did the gig. And there were 2 or 3 videos on YouTube of that gig. They weren't bad, actually, considering that, we hadn't really rehearsed. We still don't really rehearse that much. But yeah, that's Fischer-Z is like that, really. And then after that, there was a European tour. John asked me if I wanted to do more gigs. And that was it. And it's kind of one of those things, that just carried on and didn't stop. And then we had COVID. First we recorded Swimming in Thunderstorms.
Yes.
That was a band effort. We recorded that in Amsterdam in a studio there. Nice album. I really I love the sound on it. Really nice mix. COVID happened. I think I played on about 8 tracks of Till the Oceans Overflow.
Yeah. Saw you're on that.
Yeah. I think there's a few tracks with me on, and that's it. That's the last thing I played on. I think on the new album, I've done some backing vocals on the single. The beginning of When Love Goes Wrong, that's me doing.
Oh, right. Okay, great.
Falsetto. So there are a few backing vocals on there that I did on the new album.
All right. So if you had to look back at something from from all the eras that you've been involved, is there anything that stands out for you?
I mean, I think really that very first impactful moment for me was stepping up to really play properly professionally, which I have done since. But that was the first. I was what, late teens, 20, I think I was when I first started playing with John. And I think that was really that first year was amazing because it was all fresh, it was all new and exciting. And then the second year, the Iceberg model year, was nice as well because not only were we in the studio, I was a big Dexys fan, so to play with Jim and to really get to know them, and I worked with them afterwards as well. That era was amazing. This latest part, has been great because we're all a bit older, hopefully a bit wiser. And so I kind of came back into it thinking, okay, I know John, I know the way he works. So I've got no kind of big expectations. It's less rock and roll, it's like a meal and a bottle of wine between us, not each. But back in the day was a bit crazier. I think it's all been really nice. In fact, it's all in its own way. I mean, and Abbey Road, we finished some of the Iceberg model at Abbey Road. So, and that was that was on the old desk that the Beatles had used. Another, of course, big fan. They put me through the same channel as Paul to do I Smelt Roses. So, thank you very much. So that was a nice memento.
Okay, brilliant. All right, look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. There's some great stuff in there, I know.
You're welcome.
Ian Porter recalls how he joined the band. You must have played with him, Ian. You've cropped up quite a few times.
So I joined John when it was still The Cry.
Ah, okay. Right, brilliant.
So his bass player at the time, Dave Graham, who was the original Fischer-Z bass player, left for a reason I don't know. And I was working in a place called the Tape Shop. We sold recording equipment and tapes. John used to be a regular customer, and he sort of essentially said, "What are you doing tomorrow? Because we've got a playback and we need a bass player." So I had to sort of pretend I was having a wisdom tooth out to the manager of the shop. Went to Germany. There was Ultravox were doing the same show. They got me very drunk on schnapps. And I saw the video recently on YouTube. It's just a playback, but I come kind of wobbling in during the intro with my bass and just wobbled throughout. We had a couple of weeks to rehearse for a TV recording in Munich where I had to learn the album. Yeah, so that's how it started. So that would have been April 84. And then we kind of hunkered down in John's basement when The Cry finished to try and find a new kind of way of doing things. So yeah, we spent a lot of time in his studio coming up with stuff, and then we started writing the Reveal album.
Yeah,
did a few trial gigs with different personnel and different forms before that, but then it was becoming clear it was going to be Fischer-Z again. So overall, yeah, I was with it from 84 to 89.
So the track is chosen from Reveal is Perfect Day.
Yeah.
And he did indicate that took quite a lot of goes at getting that one spot on.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was largely machine-based. We had this emulator too, and sequenced everything on a tiny little window. And in those days, you had to synchronize to analog tape, which was a hit and miss at best. But yeah, we did try a lot of different ways. In the end, the bass part was played freehand. And then obviously there was live instruments like guitars and other keyboard bits. But yeah.
And how did you know him, Ian? How did you know him in the first place to start with the Cry? What was the relationship?
Well, it's largely through him being a customer of the Tape Shop in Brighton. And I was in a kind of art school band called Birds with Ears at the time. And he came along to see us playing a gig. And he kind of wanted to steal me out of that, I think.
And to go from that to being part of his band and starting to record albums, that's quite a stretch. Was it? Did you just click, or what was the process?
It was interesting. I mean, this band Birds with Ears, it was very much a local Brighton band, but we had a big following in Holland for some reason, so we'd often go off to Holland in a transit and do gigs there. So yeah, it was a different setup.
But did you click with him? What was the? You obviously have a good relationship with him to keep on sort of cropping up over the years.
I mean, it's interesting because we're such different characters, really. But there was obviously something that we kept going back to, and we found something musically that when it worked, I think it worked really well. I mean, I don't know if he's mentioned a track we did in those early stages in 1985 called Dark Crowds of Englishmen, which was about the miners' strike. I think it's one of his favourite songs that was never properly pursued in its day. So all we have is a demo that we made on a little tape recorder in his place, a Tascam 8-track, I think it was.
So that was part of the reveal sessions, was it? Or was that earlier?
It was part of the lead up, really, when we were looking for, we were just experimenting a lot. Yeah, I suppose it's the first time that electronics were getting involved in his music to any great degree. And as I say, it was the early stages of sampling. That was definitely a product of investigations around that, experiments around that. I mean, it was interesting to me when John asked me to play keyboards at this gig this year in Oberhausen, because I realised I'd never played live keyboards before. And that part for Perfect Day, which I knew so well, it's all very well when you've got time to go back and edit it and sequence it, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that was quite a challenge. So yeah, I was mostly a bass player.
So post-reveal then, did you go on to do Fish's Head? Yes.
Yeah, Fish's Head, we toured Reveal quite extensively and then set about Fish's Head. We did Reveal at Jacob's studio as well. And in the other studio, the first week we had the Smiths recording the Queen is Dead album, and the second was Status Quo. They couldn't have been more different as people to share a studio with. And then it was more touring, and then I think things between John and I weren't going so well. So I left at the end of 89. That year we did a huge gig in East Berlin, just before the wall came down. I think it was 140,000 people there. And I remember meeting James Brown and his band, and it was totally surreal, real surreal experience. But yeah, so then I left at the end of 89, not on the best of terms, but we've stayed in touch, and a kind of friendship has developed since then, and we've collaborated on a couple of things since.
Well, I saw a couple of things. You cropped up on It Has to Be.
Yes,
I noticed.
Bass on that, yeah.
Yeah, but more importantly, on Ether, you were an active listener.
No,
in the credits.
Yes, I do remember having to listen to a lot of things from that. I didn't know I was on the credits.
Yeah, you are on the credits for that. Yeah. All right. And what about when you look back at your time now with the band? Is there anything that stands out for you?
So I think the main thing I want to say is that I wasn't that confident about my music, and I was probably chasing a sound that I didn't feel I was capable of producing, but didn't really recognise what I was producing. So if I could go back, I'd do it more openly and wholeheartedly, I think. For the most part, I was always disappointed in what I'd done and didn't really recognise the qualities of what I'd brought to it. Yeah, so I was very self-critical then. I let myself get away with a lot more these days.
Right, yeah, more forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when I look back at me on stage, I can see a brave face rather than somebody who's, totally engaged and enjoying it.
Interesting enough, I was going to ask actually about the 50th anniversary, because obviously next year is their 50th, and I just wondered if you sort of had a view on why they've prevailed for so long.
It's largely down to John. He so believes in what he does and wants people to hear it, and he could have given up so many times, but it's persistent, and the quality of his songwriting for me has always been very good, but it's increased over the years. I mean, personally, I enjoy his singing more now than I did back in the 80s. I prefer the range that he sings in, and there's a kind of maturity to his performance which I really like.
His stagecraft seems to is really impressive when you see it.
Yeah, and I feel like he's embracing it more fully. He was always shooting himself in the foot in the early days. When Fischer-Z first had success, he kind of scrapped the whole project at its peak.
Why do you think they've maintained their audience? Because they've kept a very loyal audience over those 50 years, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, people see a quality in what he does that is special enough. The people who came to Oberhausen came hundreds of miles, paid, to be part of it. They wanted to be part of the family, and it did feel like a big family of supporters. Whatever it is, they feel it very deeply.
Okay. Out of the Reveal and Fisher's Head albums, would you have picked Say No and Perfect Day, or would you have picked something else?
I think they were the two obvious singles. I still like Perfect Day. I still like Say No. I mean, looking back, there are some interesting things I brought to both albums, which I hadn't recognised as being any good at the time. But now I think, it's pretty good, that. Yeah, I like that bit.
When you look at the tracks, obviously Perfect Day is obviously right up there, but there's not many on there that gets much airing live now. So like Big Drum is a great song.
I've got to say, that song, we went over and over and over and over again in John's basement studio in 1985. So many versions of it, so many versions. And my favourite one, we re-recorded the single with a producer called Steve Forward, who I'm still very good friends with. It sounds more open, more rocky, more energetic, I think. So that's my favourite version of it.
All right, look, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Look at these hands, they're trouble. Everything I touch is moving. I'm not sure I like it. Conflicting rhythms in my head. Those damn nerves won't give up. They're playing hell with me now. I tend to be distracted by the simplest of things. So fly me up to heaven on a distant pair of wings. Big drum, put me on the night train to China. Big drum, put me on a plane for...
Hadji Wasner remembers how he joined the band. So Nick, is it okay if I call you Nick, or should I actually call you Hadji? What's the story there?
The story is with the Hadji thing. We were in, I think we the first album, full album I did with John was Destination Paradise, and we recorded it at Peter Gabriel Studio, Real World, near Bath. Yeah, it was one of those downtime, boring moments, people waiting to get into the studio and playing silly games. and someone had come out with some sentence, and the challenge was to come up with band names out of it. Anyway, my one was Haji Wasner of something, 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 and it stuck. I think if I could rewind the tape, I probably would have said, oh, hang about, fine, but don't actually put that on the records. Well, that's what ended up going on. So
Right.
became known as Haji. What was quite interesting actually was that there was one time I was on the railway station platform at Chippenham to go back to London from Peter Gabriel's studio. And Peter Gabriel was on the platform with his personal assistant, and we've been recording there for about 3 months, Destination Paradise. And he came over and said, because I'd met him a couple of times, he said, "Your name's Haji, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "So's mine." Because he had this Haji name from all his, his work. What was it, WOMAD and all the rest of it. And but
Oh,
yeah,
what a brilliant story.
It stuck. And we just recently did this 70th birthday do in Oberhausen in Germany. And yeah, people wanted autographs after, and I said, "Well, what name do you want?" And they said, "Both."
Oh, brilliant. I bet they did. So how did you know him then? How did you get involved?
I got involved. It was through a kind of tour manager, PA, front of house guy called Andy Johnson, who sadly passed away several years ago. He was a tour manager for another band I was in called the Fatima Mansions. I was the keyboard player for the Fatima Mansions. Well, for one album and a tour, and my brother was the bass player in there. And for some reason, well, Andy phoned up and said, "Look, I'm a friend of John's, and Andy had been involved with touring with Fischer-Z. John needed someone. John was recording, and the band were recording Fish's Head, which was an album I think around about 1989. They would, bizarrely, because John's a fantastic guitar player, and I never understood it, but he wanted some help with the main single off that album, which was Say No." And I got this call apropos out of nothing, and ended up going down there and did help John with the guitars on Say No. I was down there for about a week, had great fun, got to know the band, and that was it. And I went off and thought, well, that was a really interesting experience, and just parked it. So that was that, and then I went off and did this Fatima Mansions thing. I did an album called Viva Dead Ponies with them, did a UK and Ireland tour. And in about, I think, 1990, 91, and we did a gig at the Zap Club in Brighton as part of that tour. And of course, John, being Brighton bass, came along and saw me at that gig. And by that point, he'd wanted to start a new era and started writing other songs, and asked me if I'd get involved, doing the guitar as a main thing with him. So and that's when it started. My kind of 4/5 year tenure with John started around about then. Yeah,
You recorded 3 albums, is that right?
Yeah, there was the 3. I think there was 3 albums and various other, not necessarily EPs, but kind of one-offs. So I think it was Destination Paradise. What was the other one?
Kamikaze Shirt.
Stream.
Stream, yeah.
Those 3. And there was various other recordings we did. I mean, we did one down at what was it called? Sausages and Tears. It was called, down at Jacobs, which I really liked.
Oh, it's a great song.
I like sausages. Sausages. I like sausages. I like sausages. I like sausages. I like lots of pork, dog, and hardly warm. I like sausages. Why must I lie in my room without you around? Why must I lie in my room without dreaming of you coming home? I like sausages.
I like loaves of bread wrapped around the edge. I like sausages. Why must I lie in my room without you around? Why must I lie in my room without dreaming that you're coming home? Lots of lovely sausages lying on the grill. Lots of lovely sausages waiting for the kill.
That was brilliant fun, and but so there might have been a few like that where we'd gone off and or recorded things in different places at different times. And
Stream is a personal favourite of mine as an album. Actually, it's got some great songs on it. John's chosen Protection off of that album as one of his favourites.
so I'd agree with that. It's definitely one of mine as well. There was another one, Stream of Unconscious, which I personally like because it was one of those songs where I went searching for a guitar part, and it happened. It was one of those things where I had to put in the work and came out with something which felt really good. It knitted the whole song together. So that was a personal favourite of mine. But Protection, absolutely, where it's coming from as a song, it's because, you talk about relationships, and of course, in that era, Pete Sinden, or we used to call him Count Sinden von Sinden.
That's the one.
Our silly names. He and I were really close, and I'm looking forward to getting back together with him, and but yeah, that was the cliche thing really with the relationships in bands. You spend a few years very intensely together, and then it's see you later, right? And in this particular example, John phoned me up in October 24. I hadn't spoken to him for nearly 30 years. 30 years, and we spent like 4 or 5 years, not just with John, but the other guys in the band, Steve Kellner, Pete Sinden, and some others, living together every day, on tour, in the studio, and then these things come to an end. They come to a natural conclusion, and that's usually a little bit painful for everybody. But often it's the timing is meant to be, and you move on to something else. But
What did you do afterwards?
well, I decided I was going to stop music. So after the shock of, I was certainly in denial. So I was in denial because it had a kind of curve up and down, really love-hate thing with it, and John and I certainly it started fantastic, and then there was a lot of tension, and we wanted to punch each other's lights out at one point, probably. And I actually quite enjoyed that, and I think he did as well, because the onstage, dual guitar thing that we had, and we were very much guitar buddies, really caught fire when the tension was there, and but it wasn't always pleasant for everybody, and so there was a time when it nearly fell out, and then I thought it started getting really good again. But where my denial was that John was going to be interested in continuing doing a guitar type band sound, right? I don't think he wasn't. He needed to move on to the next thing. He's always moving and changing. So it was a little bit painful for me at the end, but it was the right thing. And so I went off. I stopped music. I actually made a decision. That's it. I'm going to stop. So I didn't touch a guitar for 10 years. And that was it. It was over. So I had a kid, which helps to fill the creative void. But also because of that, it was like, oh, okay, I need to get my shit together and get some kind of regular income happening. So I ended up fingers and pies, and then getting involved in a kind of career, public services in the kind of justice world, and went up quite high in the management of that. And then about 2015 got headhunted by a software company. So I now work for a software company.
Oh wow!
Not as a technical dude, but kind of business analyst, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what. But I did get back into it after I had my break. I did just start picking up guitar every day and just playing. What I was into, and I've always done that. And I've done a few charity things over the years and stuff. But I've found that I've never needed to go back and be in a band or play live or do something. It hasn't been something I need to do to feel complete in myself. It's but if someone asked me to do it, I would do it.
Right.
So when John phoned up and said, "We're doing a gig, we're going to do this," great. If he said, "Let's do an album," great, let's go and do it. I'd be well up for it. So, but I did music as a teenager right up until the end of my tenure with the Zeds. So that was John killed me off on the music front.
Oh,
But
wow.
actually, ironically, during my time with Fischer-Z, we did hundreds and hundreds of shows, some really big ones, and there was enjoyment, but I never really received it and really enjoyed it because of the kind of person I was 30 years ago. There was a bit of an angry Nick, an angry Hadji kind of personality, if you like, back then, and that's not the same now. So, we did the gig in Oberhausen in Germany. I really loved it. It was fantastic. I really kind of received the experience. There's people crying down the front. Well, we did Marguerite, which is an old favourite from Destination Paradise, and you could tell people were feeling it. Some of the people hadn't seen that combination of people on stage for like 30 years, and they come all the way there for that.
Wow.
It really was amazing. So, but I did just one very quick story before we move on. I've got to get this one in. Several years after I left the band, or we parted company. So we parted company around about 1995. Several years after, I had a memory which I'd completely blanked out. And the memory was that when I was 17 years old, which would have been in, 1979, and I was in bands as a teenager. I was around at some person's party. We were having a party. The record player was on, and this record was on. I thought, that sounds amazing. What is that? Really modern sounding. I remember thinking, it sounds modern. It was like a big 3-piece sound, a bit of keyboard. I've never heard that. I wandered over to the record player, and it was this band called Fischer-Z, right? I'd never heard of that. And I think it was Going Deaf for a Living or something like one of those records. I thought, that's fantastic. And I said to I remember that the memory was, which I blanked out, I said to my girlfriend, the words came out of my mouth, wouldn't it be amazing to be in a band like that? So I said those words when I was 17 in 1979, and then forgot that experience entirely. Ended up joining the band for about 4 or 5 years, parting company with the band, and several years later, remembering that had happened. So make what you will, but it kind of for me it confirmed. It was meant to be, obviously,
and also came full circle with playing the 70th birthday.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was an amazing experience in Oberhausen. This was in March. It really was. I mean, my time with John back in the early 90s, we were quite close to his family and Irene and the kids, and they're all little kids. And in Oberhausen, we all went out for a meal, and they're all grown ups, with partners and children, and it was really fantastic. So we had a whole evening of sharing stories and food and wine. It was fantastic. Yeah.
So why do you think they've endured then? Obviously, we're talking about the 50th anniversary. Why do you think Fischer-Z have endured for 50 years?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I'm not that close to what John's been doing over the years. But there does seem to be an affinity with, obviously, I'm sure John's explained to you much better than I could, the kind of connection that people in Germany have in Europe with Fischer-Z because of those early albums and the feeling that was there in young people around the time of the Cold War and all the rest of it. And how those songs, made them feel, and there was that connection. So I think there's something deep in the kind of German European psyche, a connection with some of those early albums, and that gets passed down through families, through children, grandchildren. So that's going to be part of it. I remember one time we were doing a gig somewhere with, it was a one-off with Fischer-Z in Dusseldorf somewhere, and just getting in a cab and you'd hear all the latest kind of pop stuff, and then a Fischer-Z track would come on the radio, like Marlies. I think, where does that come from? And that's because it's part of their political popular music kind of culture. It means something, because of that time. And I remember when I first started doing gigs with John in Germany, you walk down the steps of a plane and there'd be journalists asking you, political questions. Hang about, I'm just a guitar player, but this band meant something, and because of the songs that John captured or channeled, at that time.
So you look back on your time with pleasant eyes, do you?
Oh, totally. And there was, there was a mix. There's one point where I remember we were in the middle of a tour, and I think we were in Berlin actually. And we'd just done a 3,000 or 4,000 capacity place, and it was all successful. But the feeling wasn't great. John and I weren't in a great place, and I didn't unpack my bags at the hotel. I was going to go home in the middle of the tour, and I just thought I just really don't want to do this, because there's nothing worse than not enjoying yourself and being away from home, from your family. And so I thought I'll just go home, and but that didn't happen, thank God. So we managed to.
Yeah, wow.
that was a one-off, and it was. We'd probably had our time by then. I think John and I probably 3 years was about what we needed, and he probably agreed. We probably went on for 2 years longer than we really needed to, But I absolutely love the relationships with the other people in the band, particularly Steve Kellner, Spencer, as we used to call him, and the Count. Pete and I hadn't seen them for years, and I'm really looking forward to getting back together with them again.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your time.
No, it's been good fun.
I hope you've enjoyed this first part of this special Fischer-Z podcast episode, where we've spoken to many of the musicians that have been part of the band and their stories along the way. Look out for part 2 coming soon.
Thank you for listening to the Fischer-Z 50th anniversary audio series. I hope you enjoyed it. Look out for the next episode. Come on.